All I wanted to do for that whole time was to be a world champion. All I wanted to do was win and show that I was the best.
Welcome back to Burning Questions, brought to you by Zone Smelling Salts. We've got Zack McCarley in here today, which I am super excited about. I've known Zack for a really long time, and he's actually the one who kind of got me into strongman back in the day. We met in college before I knew he was a big deal. We were just friends. Then him and another friend, Pat Castelli, were putting on a contest as a fundraiser to go compete overseas, and I just jumped in as their friend to support. And I've been doing strongman ever since. So before we get into the questions, as always, we have 8 questions. Zack has chosen his 8 salt lineup. But before we get into that, I want to give Zack the floor to tell a little bit about yourself, what got you into strongman, and some of your maybe highlight accolades.
Yeah, so what got me into strongman? I always had a fascination with sports, always had a fascination with strength. And, I did baseball, I did... a little bit of football. I did a lot of wrestling. I did some powerlifting before I did strongman. And basically the summer between high school and my first season of college wrestling, I was just chilling on the couch, flipping through the channels. ESPN 2 came on, and there's some dudes lifting rocks. And I'm like, hey, that's pretty cool. I like to lift rocks. I like rocks. And
I just like how they feel.
Yeah, I just like how that's exactly what I just like how they feel in my pocket. So I was like, okay, and I'm looking at the weights of the stones, and I'm thinking, like, that's not that heavy. Like, it's impressive, that's cool, but like, I started thinking like, hey, I could do that. And then, like, next event came on, and it was logs, and they had, like, the first log was, like, 240 or something at this time. We're talking, like, 2006, right? And I was like, man, that's not that... I could do that. I think I could do that. And then they did a farmer's, and it was maybe 250 a hand or something. And I was like, I could do that. Why don't I do that? I'm going to do that. And so...
How old were you at this time?
I was 18.
Okay.
And so then here's a real old-fashioned sentence for you. I hopped on my bicycle and rode to the public library where I could access the dial-up internet.
Uphill both ways, right?
Yes, uphill both ways. And hopped on there, searched around for a little while, found this organization called North American Strongman, and I was like, oh man, okay, let's look at this. I started looking through the contests, and there's maybe 30 contests for the rest of the year or something like that. Like, they weren't very common back then, and I'm looking, all of them are East Coast, and I'm like, man, these are like really far away. And I see this one in the next year that's in that's in the Pacific Northwest, and it's in Corvallis, Oregon, and it's in a month. And I have a PDF. Yeah, I have a PDF, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna call this number. I'm gonna ask him what's up. Some guy named Grant Higa. I don't know who the hell this is. Yeah, and so I'm like, okay, call the number. I'm like, hey, my name's Zack. I live in Maple Valley, Washington. I'm interested in getting into strongman, blah, blah, blah. I just want to know how to get in the contest. And Grant calls me back, and he's like, bro, did you say you live in Maple Valley, Washington? I'm like, yeah. He's like, bro.
That's a great Grant.
Bro, that's where I live. And I was like, what? And I'm like, I live in Four Corners. Where do you live? He's like, I live in Four Corners. I was like, what?
Did we just become best friends?
Yeah, we live like a mile and a half away from each other.
Crazy.
Like crazy, small world. And he took me under his wing, and I was like very, very blessed, very fortunate. Right place, right time, right mentality, and kind of like got introduced to that. I happened to select one of the hardest competitions in the country to do my first competition, and just got stomped by a bunch of guys that were fighting for a heavyweight pro card. And there I am, like maybe 200 pounds, like, fight me, bro. But I didn't like getting my ass kicked. And after a season of college wrestling, I decided to come back to it, and did a couple more competitions before I actually wound up winning teen nationals in 2007. And that's when I was like, oh shit, I'm kind of good at this, I guess. Like, because I hadn't won any competitions before that. I was just getting stomped every time.
Going against grown-ass men.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess I'm kind of good at this. Okay. Yeah. And I enjoyed it. So
Cool. And since then, if you had to pick like top 3 achievements, accolades, what are some cool things you've done? You got quite the resume.
I think America's Strongest Man wins 3 times in a row. I think
Since then, a 4th. Also.
Yeah. The having America's I think of this one really cool as well. Like, I think it's really cool. Having America's Strongest Man wins in the same category 13 years apart.
That's pretty cool.
It's like pretty cool.
It ages yourself a little bit.
Yeah, it does. It does. And then third one. Like coolest accomplishment? I don't know. I really like my place in the community. Like it's not, I guess it's not like an athletic accomplishment, but I just like being a mentor for athletes. Like I like that. I like being able to share my experience and give good advice for athletes that are coming up, not just for fulfilling their goals, but also giving them the awareness that, hey, you have to live in this body for the rest of your time here. You know, don't destroy it. You know, like
that's a hard one for a lot of people.
Yeah, be wise. You know, and like, and encouraging athletes to do that. And most people tend to listen. That's a really good thing. I'm happy that
most
they do.
People.
Yeah,
cool.
Most people.
Yeah, he's done a lot. He's been around. Probably won't get into the whole laundry list of the resume, but I'll put that down below so you can check out all the cool things that he's done. But going back a little bit. Like I said, we met in college. I was there studying exercise science. Zach was there doing much nerdier things. So can you tell us?
That's good stuff.
It is.
Yeah.
Tell us about your educational background and what you've done with it since then.
Ooh, so my educational background. I have actually got an AA in just like general studies from Green River Community College. I was coaching wrestling at the time when I was going to night school and got that. And then went to Central. I was going to study for a special education endorsement. I went back to school to be a special education teacher.
I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah, I was a para for 3 years.
Cool.
And I really liked it. Like, I really enjoyed that. And so I went back to school for that. But in the pursuit of that, there were some science prerequisites. And chemistry got its hooks in me.
Yeah.
It's like, I really like this. Oh, I'll just take one more. Why not the organic series? Let's check it out. Math's not that bad when you get a good teacher.
Did you like organic chemistry?
I did.
You're like one of the 2% of people.
Yeah.
If that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I wound up just pursuing chemistry and got my bachelor's in biochemistry, master's in inorganic chemistry. From there, I went and I was a wine chemist. I did wine analysis for Four Feathers Wine Estates in Prosser, Washington, which is a facility that manufactures around 3 or 5 million gallons of wine a year. So it's kind of a large operation, medium large, we'll say.
Yeah.
And then,
do you like wine personally?
I actually do, yeah. I don't drink it much, but I do like wine, and I do like the snobbery of undertones.
The fruity legs.
Yeah, yes. Undertones of black currant and,
Nerdy.
Yeah. But while I was doing that, I picked up a part-time job as a chemistry tech in an analytical lab that was in the cannabis industry. So I was actually doing state testing for cannabis. And I wound up liking that a lot more. It was much more on the scientific side. And we got to use a lot more cool instrumentation like HPLCs and, gas chromatography and mass spec and different things like that. And so I wound up going with that full-time when I was offered a full-time position there. And then worked up through quality control manager, lab manager, interim lab director, because I didn't have the years in the field that was necessary, mandated by the Washington Administrative Codes at the time, blah, blah, blah. Did a bunch of research and development in the cannabis industry, was an operations manager for a hemp extraction facility. And then I also opened up my own CBD manufacturing line.
I remember that. When was that?
When was that?
Yeah, how long have you been doing that?
I think I opened it up in 2018 or so. There's a whole story behind that, but we should probably just stay on topic.
Next time.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, that's a brief rundown of what I've done with that and with the chemistry education itself. But I do think that education in general, or just really experience, whatever experience any individual has, is just a filter through which you see the world. It's the lens. And so for me, I see the world through that lens. Like, I can't help but think of a humid day and think of the vapor pressure of water in the air and like just kind of goofy stuff like that. So
that is cool. How much chemistrying do you do in your daily life now, if any? Besides just your own nerdy thought processes.
I don't think I do a whole lot, honestly.
No?
I mean, like, I will sometimes, other than the, like, it's a really hard question to answer because sometimes I'll think of, like, if I need to clean something, I'll start thinking about detergents, and I'll think about, like, what am I cleaning? And then I'll think about, like, well, if I have menthol on my hands, I'm going to put soap on my hands before I put the water, because then the soap is going to more effectively remove the menthol that is
things that no one else thinks
like
about.
hydrophobic and like but I can't really answer that one. I don't know.
Cool. All right, moving on to the Irish cream. All right, so obviously within this context, people know you primarily as a strongman athlete and coach. But when I met you, I actually initially associated you with wrestling because in the context of playing on the school team. Is it called a team? Wrestling team?
Yeah.
So obviously you were involved in athletics all growing up. So can you give us a rundown of what other sports you were involved in and which you think ended up giving you the biggest edge in strongman?
Okay, what sports and which one gave me the biggest edge? Okay. Okay, that's enough.
Going back for more.
I am not going to. I need to hit them all good. I gotta
make that first one
represent.
count.
Yeah. So I started in martial arts, actually, like Taekwondo. I did Jiu-Jitsu. I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I did like baseball, football, and basketball. I was fortunate enough to have a lot of exposure to many different sports, and when I got exposure to wrestling, it really gripped me. That was the one that really grabbed me tightly. And
what about it?
The fact that you didn't have to rely on anyone else. I liked the independence.
Yeah, that's why I hated team sports.
Yeah, I liked the independence of it, and I liked that I could control. If I wanted to get better, I could control that. And if I was willing to make those sacrifices and put in the hard work, it would translate to results versus like football where it doesn't necessarily work like that. Like you have to have a team, and those are kind of different skills and different mentalities, but that was something that really gripped me about wrestling. Was
that your first? I guess martial arts would have been individual too, but that didn't quite do the same thing for you? Yeah,
those were not a competitive atmosphere, and so I didn't get the negative reinforcement of just like getting stomped.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when you're on a wrestling mat and when you're competing against like in any sport and you lose, like I can take a loss, but I don't like it. You know? So especially in wrestling, like it's a very raw sport, and it's one of those things that when you lose, you can take it pretty hard. Like it's kind of hard. It hurts. Yeah. Like it hurts real bad.
Physically or mentally?
Mentally, emotionally, and sometimes physically. But yeah, that's probably still my favorite sport. Really? I think it is the greatest sport on earth. And that's coming from somebody who had way more success in strongman. I think wrestling is probably the greatest sport on earth. And you can't like measure it objectively, you know, which is so tricky. It's always matchups, and you can have person A beat person B can beat person C can beat person A.
Yeah, so there's not really a clear best.
Yeah, and it's just a very interesting sport, but I digress. From that, you know, did some powerlifting. I've done some weightlifting before as well, and strongman. Like strongman has definitely been the mainstay. I think that Man, it's funny because when I think about strongman, then I think I want to say I think it's my favorite sport, but as well, I want to say that, but I think I just have more reverence for wrestling because it shaped me so much as an individual, and I definitely think that wrestling is the thing that prepared me the best for strongman.
Yeah. What about it?
The willingness to like just work and willingness to take full accountability for your inability to do something or your the amount of effort that you are putting in. A lot of times athletes will say like, I don't want to necessarily pick on football, but like we'll say football. You can have a running back that is decent, but they get inflated and they're just like, oh, it's the line's fault that they're not opening up gaps for me. Like I'm great, but they're just like, and it's like their fault. But in strongman,
there's no one to blame.
In wrestling, in both of them, there's no one to blame but you.
Yeah.
Like you're the only one, and you have to take that accountability. And if you can't, you won't get better because you're not going to work on it.
Yeah, that's what I always liked about powerlifting, strongman, that kind of stuff. For the same reason that like part of it was like not wanting to rely on a team, but also part of it for me was the anxiety of like not wanting to be the one to fuck up a team. Whereas like in strongman, it's like I can only help myself and I can only hurt myself, and like I like that part of it. It's like pure personal responsibility and accountability for how you do.
Absolutely.
Which I always hated about other sports.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I agree. I'm not a team sports are fun and like team competitions are fun, even in strongman, but I do tend to gravitate towards individual sports a little bit more.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Moving along to blueberry pie. I like this one. All right. Back in the day, you were one of like the OG big shot weight class strongmen. 7-time national champion, 3-time back-to-back America's Strongest Man. When I met you, like you were fundraising to compete in Norway. Like you were a big deal in the sport before it was like the cool thing to do. Then you took a bit of a hiatus. So you were out from like 2016 to 24. Is that right? About 8 years?
Technically 2016, because I did do a really small competition in 2016. There was some cash up for grabs, essentially.
Well, yeah.
I was like,
I'll take that.
I'll take that. And back then, very rare.
Yeah.
Like,
you remember how much?
That was scarce.
You remember how much?
500 for first.
That's a lot for back then.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah. So, but basically 8 years away. So, what brought you back?
Oh, man. Okay. Let's see if I can think about it and then forget it when I take this and then think about it again. What brought me back? That is blueberry. Blueberry pain.
Yeah.
Blueberry
that'd be a nice name.
Blueberry, yeah, it should be like a you could definitely do some kind of play on words. That is blueberry though. What brought me back? Well, I was actually in a little bit of I was living in Ellensburg for quite a while, and I found myself really kind of isolated and like not really socializing very much, and I was like, I need to start like branching out and like getting into a community. And when I thought about communities that I enjoyed, I thought about like the last one that I really, really enjoyed, and it was the strongman community. Like it was like a family. And the people that are listening to this that know strongman, they probably think of if they've been to large competitions like nationals or OSG or something larger, where for more than one time at least, you'll notice that there's kind of like a family reunion vibe. It's like coming home, and there's like all the people that you really enjoy, and you all share the same passion. Even if you have a little bit of an issue with one or two people, like who cares? Because you still love the same thing. It's like the weird Uncle
Al that like...
Yeah. But I wanted to regain some of that community, and I also saw that there were some athletes that were starting to put up some decent numbers, and there was a good bit of time where I didn't look at any strongman stuff, like years, and then I started like looking, and some guys were putting up some good numbers, and I was kind of like, that looks fun. It kind of like got me a little competitive.
Yeah.
And then
were they numbers that you saw and like knew that you could do, like already do, or numbers that inspired you to want to push for them? Like, were they already within your ability?
They were not within my ability at that moment, but I'm very confident, and I can't. It would be hard for me to see another athlete do a number and then for me to honestly believe I couldn't do it. You know what I mean? Like, even no matter what it is, like, we'll take deadlift. Like, I'm not the strongest conventional deadlifter. When I see someone hit 900 and like I have, I'm like, why not me?
Yeah.
Like, I can't not hear that. Why not me? You know? And it's like, I just have to put the work in.
Yeah.
You know? But eventually, you know, I saw enough people competing, and I had reintegrated myself into this community here at Dungeon and in the first location, and I started getting kind of the itch to compete. And then, you know, America's Strongest Man was announced for 2023, I think it was, and with like 8 weeks left to competition, or maybe it was 10. But I was like, oh, that looks manageable. I'm like, I'm gonna jump in. And like, I went for it, and man, Jeff Lee put a like swift end to that wish.
He had a
of,
great,
like,
he had a great show.
Yeah, coming back, and like, I wanted to take in second. Jeff, you are very good. I still want my rematch. You should not be a heavyweight, bro, with that huge frame of yours.
He's way too tall to be to middleweight.
Yeah, but basically, I was like, why not? Like, a lot in my life had changed, and I was actually like living over here at that point, and because I moved from Ellensburg to the Auburn area, and I had changed careers. I went through a lot of personal changes, which we don't need to go into, but like, because we'd be here for like hours. But essentially, I just was in a headspace where I'm like, I am only here for so many years, and I think that I'd like to try it again. And I'm really grateful that I did, because I like winning the 2015 Worlds in Norway was the worst, best thing that ever happened to me. Because when I won, it just squashed the fire in me. Like,
You did it all.
I lost it all.
Yeah.
Like, I lost all of my edge. Like, I lost all of my desire to compete. It was dead.
So I'm curious, just to sidebar, because I've always thought about and I've asked people, like, when it comes to competition, is it because you enjoy winning or because you hate losing? And I feel like everyone's one or the other. Like, you can be both. So for you, it's not like, was it that you just hated losing and then you weren't losing anymore? So what's the fun? Or what's the drive, I guess? Maybe not the fun, but the drive.
Well, there were a lot of things that happened in that time. I mean, like, in 2014, I actually walked away from the sport originally, and it was to start a family with my, at the time, fiance, and that did not work out. And so, you know, I left the sport in pursuit of that, and, you know, about 9 months after leaving the sport, I found out that I had this basically wild card invitation to a World Championships, and with like less than 2 months notice, I was like, yeah. Like, I just sat down and thought about it. You know, the thought exercise that I do a lot is I think of myself at like 80, and I think, looking back on my life, would I regret not doing this? Or would I regret doing it? And immediately my mind was like, you would regret not knowing. Like, you finally got your chance. Like, I waited for an invitation to Worlds for at least 4 or 5 years, and I didn't get it, and that was something that really ate me up. And that opportunity, I had to take it. Like, I had to say yes. Like, and I was in grad school, and at the time, and I was like, I didn't even tell my advisor until 2 weeks before I was leaving, and he said, he heard through the grapevine, and he confronted me. He's like, hey, I heard you're going to be leaving for a week. And I was like, yeah. He's like, okay, yeah. It was super awkward. Like right in the middle of the hall. I was just gonna leave. I was a little less responsible at that time, but I was also like, I don't care if this takes me, if it chews up another quarter in school. I don't care. Like I can't say no to that opportunity.
You might never get that back.
Yeah, it was something that I couldn't. Like I had waited for that for over half a decade of my life. And I was at that level for that long, longing and waiting for that, because all I wanted to do for that whole time was to be a world champion. All I wanted to do was win and show that I was the best. Like that's what I really, really wanted. That's what I desired. And I never got an opportunity to do that up until that notice. And then I was like, I have to do it.
Yeah.
Cool. We went way off.
We did.
Went way off on that one.
That was a good tangent, though.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
But
so
anyway.
So I'm curious. So you said that a big part was the community that brought you back, and you alluded to it being like a family reunion. But what was it like when you were competing before? Obviously, that family looked different, and then you came back to a sport with completely new people and new faces. And was that weird? Was that like a cool, like, is it cool to meet new people? Was it hard to not have like your original strongman family? Like, did it feel disconnected?
It was both. I still had people in the community like Saul and Rachel and you. And when I came back, these are individuals that, I knew in a different capacity. Now they were, what's the word? Like equals, like before I was like a mentor, like I was introducing these people.
Yeah, like coming back to peers.
Yeah, peers. Yeah. That's the one I'm looking for, is like these individuals that I remember judging. I remember being the judge for Rachel's first competition, Yeah. Like, I remember, meeting Saul like years and years ago and him just starting. And like, I remember meeting you at Central. And
do you remember helping me try to sneak a log into the rec center?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah. I would sneak my axle in there that I would borrow. And, eventually they didn't like that. Eventually they were like, we can't have you doing that.
I don't think we weren't successful.
Yeah, no. But that it changed in that capacity, because I was no longer in that role of being the mentor. At least I didn't view myself that way, and I kind of don't really view myself that way. I view you guys as peers.
It's more collaborative now.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. And it's like, you guys have experience that I don't have, and I'd be a fool to be like, I know better. Like, no, you guys have things that I can learn from you, and it's less common when you're talking to somebody that's been in the sport for like a month or two versus someone who's been in the sport I was away for how many years? Like better part of a decade, and you guys have been nose to the grindstone, like this is my life, So
different experiences.
Yeah, very different experiences. And then like the new crop, and then it was really weird like competing at ASM in 2023 because I showed up and just a bunch of new faces. Like everybody's new, right? Of course, if people that don't know, like strongman typically has a crop of athlete rotation every, we'll say like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, it's like going through like 2 generations of athletes.
yeah, I really did. And so what happened was, and I found out about this like after the competition because a couple people reached out to me, but like the people that were looking up to me when I was in that first run, they've had their careers, and then they like peaked, and then they retired, and now they're coaching. And so it wasn't the athletes that knew me.
That's cool.
It was their coaches that were there that were like, oh shit.
You gotta watch out for this guy.
Yeah. Like, what? You're competing here? Because I don't think I really said much about my showing up or anything.
No, and then, you kept it very secret.
Yeah, but I will say that Johnny Wasiko was there, and that was super cool because I was like, bro, you're still here? Oh my God. He's been competing a little longer than me. So he's probably been competing since like 04 or 05.
Yeah, he's got a few years on you. You're like the wise old man in the sport.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. But that was just, it was really funny. So, but it was definitely different, and it's different in a lot of ways, but it is beautiful in its own way, and I pride myself on my ability to accept that and change with the times.
Cool. That actually leads in really nicely to the next question. Great bubble gum. So. All right, so you've been around the sport longer than some people have been, like, lifting, period. So strongman has come such a long way just even in the past few years, but like you've watched the sport grow and evolve for like almost 2 decades now. So can you talk a little bit about what that change within the sport has looked like for you, and then in your opinion the pros and cons that have come with that change?
Okay, how's the sport changed and the pros and cons? We're good, yeah. I didn't get any bubble gum. That was just pain. Yeah, no, I didn't get any. That wasn't pleasant at all. That was just straight up like, ow.
Like a little physical hit there.
Yeah. Okay, so, yeah, the sport has changed a lot. I mean, it's, I do want to be really, I guess, transparent with, there were a good 3 or 4 years there where I just didn't even look at anything strongman. Like, I think that's I don't want to say that it was like dead to me, but it was like it didn't exist.
Which is kind of cool though, because then you got like a very stark like difference. Cause you didn't get to see the progression. Like you saw like where you started, and then there was a gap, and then what it turned into. Yeah, which is kind of cool.
It is really interesting because I kind of came back, and it almost feels like 2 different lives. You know, like it feels like a lot had changed in that time. The time period that I did not witness was 2016 really through to about 2019 2020-ish, and in that time the sport had gone from a much more like basic version of it where competition was being held in parking lots, and national, like large competitions were being held in parking lots outside, and it wasn't uncommon to not have any prize money at all of the levels. There were times I won America's Strongest Man and did not get paid a dime, because you go to compete. Like it's a point of pride to be the best. Like at that time, in that first little stretch, like 2011 through 2013, when I won those 3 back-to-back, there were only maybe 15 pros in the lightweights. Lightweights. Now they're middleweights. Now there's a bunch of different ones, But like there were only 15 pros, and 12 of them were showing up. Because
then was it just lightweight, heavyweight? Mm-hmm. Just 2 divisions?
Yep, just lightweight, heavyweight. And so, it was, I don't know, it felt more pure. Honestly, I remember it as being more pure, but it was also like you had to fucking love it.
Yeah.
You had to love it or you weren't going to make it through. And when I came back to it, it was like, oh, cool. The sport is like, people are starting to get paid a little bit. There's more sponsorship opportunities, which was really, really challenging in the beginning days. And the sport had bloomed and grown. And yes, there was some drama. Yes, there was some negative growth with that. But I felt like the majority of the growth was really beneficial, not just for athletes and promoters, but for people watching and the people that were affiliated with it, including the companies that wanted to do sponsorships, because we didn't have back in my day we didn't have any companies like Cerberus or SBD or companies like that were really in on designing equipment for this sport. That wasn't a thing. Like we had to adapt, and like Ray-Ban was probably your best option for like knee sleeves and a soft belt or something like that. And then you just have to like piecemeal everything from all these different sports, and you just figure it out. Nothing was designed for strongman. Now we have like things that are specifically strongman supportive gear companies, which I think is really, really cool, but it changes the sport a lot, So it's grown, and it's grown in many ways. It's matured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think mostly for the good.
I agree. And I
do you see any drawbacks?
Yeah, I do think. Yeah. I think I see a couple, but I think the biggest drawback is some athletes will get, and I'm twisted up about this one because maybe in the end this negative will prove to be a positive with the change that it could potentiate. But I think that some athletes get very hung up on, I deserve this payout for this performance. Like, I think that and maybe it's that I do see that stark contrast from the, the like golden years of like the pure passion and love for the sport versus the entanglement with financial benefit and like, the payout kind of side of things. I do think that the sport does need the financial side, but I do think that some individuals have been a little bit distasteful. Like I just find it distasteful when athletes are like, "I need this much," or are really upset about not being paid a certain amount that they put in their head. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times those individuals haven't put on a competition. They're not a promoter. They don't understand the things that go into that. And I don't like that change, but I do have to admit it probably has the capacity to potentially bring about a much brighter future than the direction that we were going before.
Yeah.
So
I think there's a line there too that, as an athlete, sometimes there's, frustration in people making claims that they deserve things that maybe they haven't worked for, that people that have been in the sport for a couple of years, or I think there's a time and place and a line. But I think I would agree with a lot of that there is a lot of people rushing the process and wanting to earn and be deserved things that they maybe haven't put in the time for, and especially as someone like you've been here for almost 20 years, but to the point, like being really great at something takes time. And I think that it's great that the sport's grown so much and there's all these opportunities, but then I think people rush that process without realizing that like really being like the greatest and being a professional takes time.
I absolutely agree. I think one of the words that I was looking for is like there's a certain level of entitlement in some individuals now that I find distasteful, but
because I think there is a difference between entitled and deserved, or just entitled and earned.
Absolutely.
And that line gets blurred.
Yeah.
I think sometimes.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah.
All right. Where are we at? This one.
The grape was the last one. It was terrible.
Grape one. Now we got green apple. This one is also subtle. So just like warning you going into it.
I got it all in my right nostril, and there was no bubble. There was no gum to be had. And I was like, "This is just ouchy."
I gotta even it out and go on the other side.
Yeah.
Oh, that one went one side, so we had to even it out.
Yeah.
All right. So I feel like you're kind of famous around here for being the reason a lot of rules exist. So Zach is known for finding creative ways of doing events that aren't technically cheating because it wasn't explicitly stated in the rules that you couldn't do it that way, which I think is awesome. Because
very accurate.
I think it's awesome because we all know that strongman's about more than just being strong, and I like skill, technique, and creativity, I think, are things that also play a role.
Should be rewarded.
I think so.
Yeah.
So, first, I want to know what the most ridiculous, not technically cheating thing it is that you've gotten away with in a contest.
That I got away with, not that I tried.
That you got to... Well, let's both. Let's just do both. Most creative, ridiculous, not technically cheating things. And then, also, I want to hear a bit more about what you think makes a great strongman athlete besides just physical ability.
Ooh. Okay. Well, I'm gonna sniff this in just a little second. Steal myself. I'm just gonna do this, and then I might have to get it again. Okay, here we go. Yeah.
Do it. That was like a little lick there.
Caramel apple. That one, like, you ever get the eye, like it feels like your eye is kind of pushing?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that one got me real good in the left eye. That was nice. Overtones of exploding eyeball. Ooh. Yeah.
It's your wine connoisseur sommelier coming out.
Okay, so the most... Are we looking for funny or like heinous or like what is the
just like ones you're proud of?
Ones I'm
wow, that was really creative. That was really cool.
Bouncing a stone off the ground. Mm-hmm. Yeah, on a repetition event. There was an event where we were, I'll do it to the camera right there, but there was an event where there was a stone stand right here. Here's the stone. You had to load it and then roll it off the other side, and then pick it back up, load it, roll it off the other side. I was rolling it and then doing this into the lap and then popping it up.
Cool.
And I'd walk around and stand so it would bounce.
Oh, so you like pull it
catch.
to bounce and then catch
I would
instead of pushing
intentionally
it?
pull and like push it into the 4 layers
Nice.
of rubber mat so it would bounce, and I could get it to bounce straight back up past my knees into
Nice.
my lap. So it was just just extensions.
And you got away with that?
Yeah.
Good. You
Yeah.
should.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Hell yeah. So there was that. I did not get away with in a overhead press for repetitions. So it's clean, then press. No behind the neck. Yeah, I did not get away with that one.
That's dumb if it's not in the rules.
I know, right?
That's silly.
I know, right?
I wouldn't have called you on that.
Yeah, jeez. Those are the only 2 that like really come to mind immediately. I'm sure we could. I don't want to chew up like 5 minutes.
You've done some weird things with the deadlift.
Oh yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah, I've tried to off center myself on a bar. I tried to off center myself on a bar, because my deadlift, like the guys that I was competing against, like Sean DeMarinis and like all these guys with like an 800 plus deadlift, and at the time my deadlift was like maybe 7, and with a hitch, and just like, I was like, I'm not. Like, I think it was like a 730 or something deadlift, and I was like, I'm not even going to get a single repetition here. Like, so I lined up off center, and I tried to tilt the bar. I tried to, instead of picking it up, we'll say like this, I tried to line up sideways and then tilt the bar and wedge my shin under and then lever the bar up and pick it up like that. And that did not work out.
It's a good thought, though.
It was a really good try. It was a wonderful try that I made. Yeah, but I feel like I'm getting kind of like flooded with too many fragmented ideas, because there were a lot of them. There were a lot of like goofy things, but it's part of the sport, and like you said, I think people should be rewarded with that creativity, but also as a promoter, you need to have the accountability and responsibility of, if you don't want somebody doing something, you need to say it. Like if there's a way to game an event, then good on the athlete for finding it. But it needs to be very clear that like a farmer's event, chalk only in the hands, and I think we don't need to get into the liquid chalk like discussion. I think that's just silly. Any kind of chalk is fine in my opinion, but I don't think the grip jizz is chalk. I think it's
they put a little something in there.
yeah, it's a little too tacky, but like, if I think that there needs to be some accountability from promoters if they're gonna. This isn't CrossFit, it's strongman, and I'm really happy that has stayed in the sense of, CrossFit is on the other end of the spectrum where if there's something that is not to movement standard, they will immediately no rep you, and it's no good. Versus us, if it completes the standard of movement, but it's done in a unique way, it's a good rep. Versus CrossFit, like you can do the standards of movement, but if you do it in a way that they don't like, they can just say no rep.
I think part of the beauty of the sport is like it's just about moving the thing from point A to point B. It's like completing a task, like figure out how to complete the task. I think that's
agree.
cool.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
Okay. So, what makes a great athlete outside of physical ability?
I was gonna say thank you. Yeah, there was that other piece. Mindset, like mentality, like you gotta be right up here. Like strongman and life and in general isn't just about like being physically strong. You have to be like mentally and emotionally strong as well. You have to have the tenacity to go for what you want, and you have to have the resilience to actually be able to kind of get hit in the mouth and be like, yeah, that's fine, because that's not going to stop me. Like, you're not going to get everything that you want, and you're definitely not going to get most of the things you want on your first try. So I think that mindset makes a lot of all right athletes into exceptional athletes, and it takes even more incredible individuals with potential and destroys them before they even had half a chance of succeeding.
Yeah, that's always sad to see.
Yeah.
We see that a lot.
Yeah.
With all the physical potential in the world that don't go anywhere with it.
Yeah, I met a lot of people in wrestling like that, actually. It was so interesting. And I think that that's where I learned that. There were individuals that I wrestled with that had I feel that I was gifted in wrestling and in my physical capacity and my abilities, but there were some individuals that were an echelon or two above me. And it would become very apparent when we were wrestling, and I just wouldn't quit. Like, I wouldn't quit. Like, there were, again, like back in my day, like if you look at my left pinky, it's larger because in a match, my finger got snapped backwards and I didn't stop because I was you're going to have to fucking kill me. Like, you are going to have to kill me.
You have 9 other fingers.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but it's like that's the power of mindset in many ways. Like, when you're going at something with everything that you have, it'll stop people with far higher potential in their tracks. And it'll just like freak some people out. Like, I've seen people get like way freaked out before. It's just I'm not.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm not gonna quit. You know.
You need a little bit of crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Just enough. Probably more than a little, but like just enough. You know.
Do you real quick? Do you feel like that's something that you always had, or something that you developed over time?
That's a really good question. I think I developed it in grade school. Yeah. And I think it was because I lived in Chicago for a couple years, and I got my ass kicked a lot. Like, a lot. Yeah, it was it was a rough area. And, just stating it plainly, like, I was one of like 3 white kids in my class of 30. And I stood out, and man, you get singled out and you're in trouble. I got my ass kicked a lot. Really? And it came down to being like, I remember talking to my stepdad, Ray, about it, and he's like, well, like, are you going to fight back? And I was like, I can do that.
Is that an option?
Yeah, right? And he's like, they're just going to keep doing this if you don't fight back. And I was like, okay. And the next time somebody kind of came up to me, I literally dropped my level and just blasted him right in the nuts as hard as I could. Just hit him right in the nuts. And then I hit him right in the head. And then I ran real fast. Like, I was out of there. But you never fuck with me again.
That'll do it.
Yeah, and like, everybody stopped fucking with me after that. But it was a rude awakening for a child that was not aware that world existed. And for, I was in like 2nd grade or something, and maybe 3rd grade, 2nd or 3rd grade. But it was an important thing to learn. That. Because like, some of the individuals were like high schoolers that were coming around, like driving home and then picking on elementary kids. They were picking on the ones that were like alone. Yeah. I'm walking home alone, and it's like winter, and 2 or 3 of them hop out and just shove you in the snow and like just whitewash you real hard. So it was just it was. I think that's when I developed that kind of tenacity. That was like, if you're gonna hurt me, that's fine, but you're gonna regret it. Because like, you are gonna regret it, because I'm gonna go down swinging, and like, I don't care if you kill me.
So, obviously that's awful as a child, but are you ultimately thankful for that experience?
Yeah, I am.
You wouldn't be who you are today probably without.
Yeah, and I also think
some of that.
Yeah, and I also think that those experiences can change you many different ways. But I think that, at least, I think part of being a man and also being a woman, and growing in that way, is recognizing that you have the power to shape what direction you want that change. And for me, I decided that like, I like that made me much more tenacious and much more gritty. but I also recognize and retain the memory of what it's like to have that done to me. And I would not ever do that to someone. You know, like I choose to allow that to change me and better me in that way because I have the power to. And I don't allow that to be like, well, it happened to me, so it should happen to you. Like, I will not be
that unfortunately happens too, and that's
to see. Yeah, and I think that those individuals, a lot of people don't make the conscious choice to do that, and in many ways they fail to become an actual adult and they stay in adolescence. That's my opinion, and I'm kind of harsh on that. So
it's true though. I think I agree with that. All right, moving on to the steel bottle.
Let's do it. Yeah. Oh! Oh no! Oh. This is the way you responded.
All right. Okay. So it's been fun to see you take on more of a coaching role, like as you've come back into strongman. I know you obviously trained hard to compete, but you clearly love being on the other side of things too, like the coaching, mentorship role.
Yeah.
What is it that you love about coaching, and then what type of relationship do you strive to have with your athletes?
Okay. This one feels easy. If I remember the question after this one feels easy because it's like right on the tip of my tongue. I feel like I already know. So here we go.
Oh, that was really going for the double.
Oh God, it's still burning. Oh, I'm good. Oh yeah.
For a twofer on that one.
I was like, no, I can do it harder. Oh, I did it harder. Oh.
Please, sir, can I have some more?
Okay, so what do I love about coaching? What do I strive for as far as a relationship with my athletes? You know, being a more mature athlete, and I do mean that in like training age sense, I don't get to experience a lot of those aha moments. I don't get a lot of those epiphanies anymore. I don't get a lot of huge PRs. I will probably, unless I do a new movement, I will probably never PR by more than 20 pounds for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
20 pounds is a lot.
Yeah, and I can think of one or two movements that I could probably maybe do that. But like, you get what I'm saying, is like those moments will not come for me very frequently, and I feel that I'm fortunate in that I can really genuinely share in the joy of other people. I'm a strong believer in joy shared is doubled and sorrow shared is halved, you know?
I like that.
Yeah, the like, and when my athletes, I'm gonna get emotional. Oh God, I'm thinking about it.
It's the salt.
It's the salt. It's fine. I just love seeing that moment for people, and it really it brings me a lot of joy to see their joy. And when people have those moments where they're having that epiphany, or like, oh my God, I can do this lift like this, or I can do this lift like this, or this doesn't hurt me anymore. Yeah. You know, adjusting not just like technical side of things, but giving people that agency and then allowing them to develop a passion that they enjoy, and it is to the betterment of not just them as an individual, but their life. And sometimes for their career path as well. I've coached coaches, and I've also coached many parents that have passed on what they have learned to their children. And I think that that's incredible. And I kind of sometimes think about, like, wouldn't it be cool to have like a lineage tree of, like, you know, I came from Higa, and like Higa came from, you know, Odd Haugen, and like, like
all the people that you've influenced.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Like, I think that'd be really cool. But I think that that's what I love so much about coaching, is getting to share in that joy and getting to be there in those moments. Mm-hmm. And that is what rewards me the most about coaching. And then what I strive for with my athletes, it depends on the athlete. I mean, sometimes I am in a much more like authoritative role if that's where they need me. Other times I'm a bit less hands-on and more just like guidance and chill, but I do strive for a real mentorship role. I don't want to just, you know, be the person that spits out a week of programming and be like, go do your shit. You know what I mean? Like, I really like to be high touch. I like to be very hands-on, and I like to be able to help athletes ride out the highs and the lows. the sport is something that this sport in general is something that you really need to love to do still. It's not something that you can easily make a living on.
Yeah.
And I feel that that's the case for most people with any sport. That's just the facts. Even the sports that have incredible payout, it's a very small number of people that are going to make it. But, I strive to be someone that people can go to with questions. They can feel very open to address things, and they can feel safe in, having the vulnerability to learn and not be afraid of being ashamed or anything negative of that nature. That's how I kind of strive.
Nice. So follow-up question to that. For anyone watching that doesn't know, Zach is Angelica Dardine's coach, last year's Arnold Strongman champion. So follow-up question is, what is it like coaching an athlete at that level? And then how have you approached working with AJ specifically?
Yeah, it's really cool working with an athlete that is at that level. I think that I don't really approach it a whole lot different. I'm still looking at everything broad scope, but I'm also still assessing technical movement and underlying issues of what's going on. We could say that we'll say an athlete is working on their jerk and they go to dip and their hips are kicking back and their knees are kicking back and it's not a balance issue. Well, your soleus is probably tight. Let's check out your ankle mobility. I'm still assessing things like that. It is really fun I will say it is really fun to be able to share in those experiences. That is something that is unique to athletes of that level, that having those stages and being able to help to guide them along that path. Most people that you coach will not go to a competition and then wake up to 15,000 new followers on Instagram. How do I navigate that?
Yeah.
And, navigating the process of going from no sponsors to some sponsors, or talking about sponsorship deals or looking through contracts or things of that nature. There are a couple of those things that are unique to coaching higher level athletes, but I think many of the things really do stay the same, and the same attention needs to be paid to those details.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I answered everything in that question.
Yeah, I think so.
Everything? Okay.
Yeah. Anything different about working with AJ specifically that you're allowed to talk about without throwing her under the bus?
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, my relationship with all of my athletes is unique, and it's because we're talking about two different individuals every time. I think with her and I really appreciate our relationship actually, because we have a very no nonsense relationship where if she doesn't like something, she tells me. And if I don't like something, I tell her, and we don't have to sugarcoat it. We've said that and we've agreed on it. Don't have to sugarcoat it. If I send something over her way and she's like, why the hell did you put this in here? Or if she's doing something and she's slacking, I'm like,
bruh,
I know you can lift more than that. I know that that's wrong. Get your shit together. You know what I mean? So
you need that though.
Yeah.
A lot of people need that.
Yeah. And it does come to coaching style as well, which is actually one of the things that I ask people when I'm assessing if I'm a good fit for an athlete is, what is your preferred coaching style? How do you like to be dealt with? Do you respond better to stern coaching? Do you need a certain streak of kindness and understanding? What do you need as an individual to succeed? Because as as a coach, I've actually been in a lot of those different roles. I can be a very kind and soft and caring kind of coach, but I also come from a background of pretty hardcore wrestling where it's oh, your finger's broken? Let me see your other hand.
Maybe somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, final serious question. Oh, there it is.
Oh man, my nose is still reeling from that.
All right. So over the course of your athletic career and everything that you've accomplished, how do you feel that you've grown the most as an athlete and as a person?
Oh man, this is gonna be a good answer. Oh.
Oh my God. Such aggressive sniffs.
Okay, that's good.
I like your tongue out response.
I was like, I kept getting like little half ones, and I was like, oh, come on, man.
Give me a good one.
Yeah. Hit me. Is it Commando? Like, when Arnold's in the mud and he's like...
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, no? Okay.
Lost reference. Someone will get it, though.
Yeah. Like, there's a movie. He's like, come get me, you son of a bitch.
Can picture that.
Kill me! That's what it was. Kill me! Okay, so I'm going to need the question one more time. Growth as an individual and as an athlete?
Yep.
Where have I grown the most?
Yeah.
Or how?
Yeah, how do you feel like you've grown the most? Like throughout your athletic careers, everything that you've accomplished, everything that you've gone through as an athlete, how do you think that it's helped you grow both as an athlete, but then also just as a person outside of the sport?
I would say that, and maybe this is just focusing on one of them, but more as like a person. I think that the biggest growth that I've undergone is recognizing that my value as a human is inherent and that it's not in the external validation that I can achieve with accomplishment in the sport. In the beginning, when I was competing, and even through all of the sports that I did when I was younger, I would view my worth to be correlated with my accomplishments or my ability to perform. And I think that led down into a very dark place where I could not see the value in myself outside of that. And I had to go through an identity death to really get through it and get to the other side. And that occurred in that time that I was away from the sport, because the only thing that kind of kept me propped up was gone. Like it was the only place that I was really seeing a lot of value as an individual. And leaving the sport and then going through a lot of that personal growth and that identity death. And if I'm not a strongman, then who am I and what am I? And like, what's my point for being here? Like, what is my worth? Like, why am I wasting this oxygen on this planet? Like, and, coming through the other side of it, I recognized that I had that value all along, and it actually didn't change it didn't change anything if I did well or not. It was all in my head. And I think that that's the biggest way that I've grown in my time in the sport. And I think that is something that I really try to... I don't always address that directly with other athletes that I work with, but it is something that I look out for, and it's something that I make sure athletes that I work with know, is that they should differentiate some of their interests. They should have other things in their life they really enjoy. I try to discourage individuals from being like completely consumed by this one thing that is fickle and will forget you. It doesn't love you like you love it. And you need to love you like you love it, even more. So I think that's how I've grown the most as an individual, and I try to pass that on to my athletes. I try to keep them in a safer space than I put myself. And I did that to myself, and I think part of me did it intentionally. But as an athlete, I think that I've grown in a lot of different ways, and I've seen a lot of different training methodologies. I've seen, as I get older, the thing that is still occasionally hard for me to do is know that coming into the gym, and like not even necessarily on a deload week, but sometimes it just, as an athlete and someone who is like, I swear, like I promise you I will work harder than you. I have that in me. You can't do that all the time. Like that's how you break yourself. And the way that I've grown, and one of the hardest things for me to do even still, is to go into the gym and then say, today I'm just putting in some work. And like just do a couple lifts, just do a couple sets. Like, you break a good sweat, you're not even breathing really hard, but you hit the numbers that you needed, and now it's time to leave, and it feels like you didn't do shit, and like you're in your head like questioning it, but you're like, I know this is the right move, but that used to just like destroy me, and now I'm like, okay, it's still uncomfortable, but I'm okay.
You've accepted it.
Yeah.
It's funny. I think those two things are the biggest reasons that people leave the sport. Both of them equally, either holding on to that value of this is only worth it if I'm the best or I'm winning or being successful, and then inevitably at some point that's not going to happen. You can be the best and you'll have a year that things don't go great, and you see people fall off because of that, because they can't handle that feeling, or because they have no chill and don't know when to pull back, and they hurt themselves and they break and then they're gone. So I think it's interesting. I think that those two realizations are probably the most two important things for everyone to accept, to have any sort of longevity within the sport. Yeah. It's like you either figure that out or you don't. Because I know you've seen probably more than me. Like, I haven't been into the sport nearly as long, but it's been over a decade now, and you see a lot of people come and go in that time and have like meteoric rises and then disappear. And I think a lot of it probably could boil down to one of those two things 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, I think the going too hard is so common, and I
think we all have that mentality of I'm going to outwork you, and I think a lot of myself included at times it's like that means I have to work as hard as possible every single time I'm in here. But like working hard can look different. Like you can do an easier workout and still be working mentally hard, thinking about what you're doing, putting intention behind your training without killing yourself, and like working as hard as possible can look different.
And that is actually something that I told one of my oldest friends. I call him my brother, Dylan. Something that I told Dylan. There was one day that I was visiting him, and we went to the store. We were in Fred Meyer's, where I remember it very well. We were in the vegetable section. We were just like grabbing some salad or whatever. And he looked at me and he's like, you know what? Like, you know what really frustrates me? And I'm like, oh, what? He's like, I know I work harder than you. And I kind of took it personally a little bit. I was like, whoa, like, how dare you? It's like in my head. And I was just like,
what do you mean?
What do you mean by that? And he's like, I bust my ass. Like, my diet's perfect. Like, I'm training hard all the time. Like, I'm always pushing it. And I know I work harder. And I was just like, is it harder to push so hard that you break every month? Or is it harder to have the accountability to pull back and have to own the result? And he just like shut up, and I shut up. And it was like, there was probably about 30 seconds we were just sitting there and like looking at the prepackaged salad. Like, he's like, okay. like it never happened. We just kept going. Like,
did you guys
ever want some cinnamon toast crunch?
Do you guys ever talk about that or have a conversation about it?
Yeah. We talk about it. I laugh now and I share it now because it's like way water under the bridge. But I'm so proud of him. He's really grown in the last couple of years, especially in that way, because he was very much like me in the sense of like, I will break myself on this, And now he is much more of the mind that like there's a season to everything. Like you do need to. It's not just about how hard can I train. You want to know like how far you can go, and it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You need to concern yourself with your health. If you're not healthy, you're not going to put enough training cycles together to even have a chance at getting close to the best you could ever be. You have to be concerned with recovery. You don't get better in the gym, you get better outside the gym when you're recovered. And then you can, after you get those two down, you can begin to consider how hard are you training.
All right.
Riveting.
We've been talking for so long, our battery died. So I think we only caught the last tail end of that sentence. But
yeah, but what I was saying is,
stay.
Yeah, stay. What I was saying is, the things that people need to concern themselves with are the health. Like, if they can't stay healthy, they can't put enough training cycles together to get to anywhere even close to what their potential is. They need to be concerned with recovery because they don't get better inside the gym, they get better outside the gym when they've recovered. And then once you have those two things down, then and only then you can really concern yourself with training. And that's not just how hard are you training, but are you training smart? And that is something that, like, that is something that most people cannot comprehend. And it took me a long time to understand it as an athlete. Like, it was an important way for me to grow. And I suppose it does get back to the point that I did make as an athlete, which is, having to be okay with training smart. Because that's really what it is.
Yeah. It's not always as fun.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's really not.
All right.
Okay.
Final fun question. So I've been asking everyone the same question. I'm gonna go a different route with you. So let me start with this. Whew. All right. So something I remember about you is your birthday workouts.
Oh yeah.
So this is inspired by you. I don't do it as much anymore, but I have done a lot of birthday workouts myself and programmed them for people. So any of my past clients who have ever gotten a birthday workout from me, you can thank Zach for that. So what was the most brutal birthday workout that you remember putting yourself through?
Oh man, that's a good one. Here we go. What is it? I'm 37 now. 37 steps.
Oh God.
Okay, we're good. I made it. I survived.
You made it.
I'm disappointed.
We have more.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, you should show the box of ammonia that you have.
We have a lot.
It is a monstrous collection.
And I have more at home. I have one in my car. I have one in my backpack. It's like chapstick now.
Yeah.
I got my car ammonia, my bedroom ammonia, my gym bag ammonia.
Yeah.
All right. Most brutal birthday workout.
Yeah. Oh man, that's really tough. Because I've done brutal birthday workouts in many different capacities. I'm just gonna go through some of my favorites.
Okay.
The original. So good. It's so good. It was I want to say it was a 274 fat handle farmers for 50 feet into a 700-pound yoke for 50 feet into a 50-foot 700-pound tire flip into a 700-pound chain drag for about 70 or 80 feet. And then I just collapsed. And it was absolutely brutal. It was very gross. That was the original.
Do you remember how long that took you?
It is on YouTube somewhere.
We'll find it.
It's on YouTube.
We'll link it somewhere.
I think it's named Death Medley.
Okay.
And it's under my first YouTube account. And then another, they're going to be out of order. That was my 21st, I think. Maybe it was my 18th. No, I was, it might have been 20th. Anyway, my 25th, I do really, really, really big birthday workouts that are not ordinary for big milestones.
Yeah.
Quarter century felt like a big milestone.
That's a big one.
And I was 25. This one's got to be really interesting. I've never been a great swimmer.
Oh no.
So I was I'm going to swim a mile or I'm going to drown. And so
clearly you swim a mile because you're still here.
Yeah. But I did, to be fair, I did it in a pool and I was kicking off the wall. But it took me about 40 minutes and I swam 1.3 miles or something. I think I did 44 laps, something like that. I can't quite recall. I brought a ton of pennies to the pool and put pennies all on the ledge. Yeah, and then when I'd get down, I'd grab a penny and then throw it in the water.
It's a good strategy.
Yeah, and that's the only thing I could think of to do. But yeah, it took 40 something minutes. And then what else? 24 was really good. It was 12 stone loads at somewhere between 260 and 300. I can't remember. It was no tacky. I think it was closer to 260. The weight didn't matter because what I'm about to say is rough. The tire flip was between 700 and 800, but it was it was one tire flip, one stone load. up to 24. So it's 12 and 12. You finish, and then you have to eat a habanero.
No.
And nothing to drink.
You should have started with that and then made yourself do the
Right?
event.
Nah, that would have been the better move, honestly. But yeah, that one was rough. That one's on YouTube somewhere. I remember being like, and then habanero comes into the screen.
Dude, that's the
like,
last thing I would.
oh, nom, nom, nom.
That's probably one of the last things I would want to do in that moment.
Yeah, it was brutal. My 36 was really good. Or sorry, no. Yeah, 36 was really good, and I'll end on 30 probably. 36 was, I tried to keep it to every 30 seconds. This was really brutal. I was like, I'm going to shoulder a body weight sandbag the number of years old that I am. And I was like, maybe 230. And I was like, well, we have 225 here, but that doesn't really count. And I'm too lazy to change the weight, so I'm going 250. And I did the 250, and I stuck with three sandbags to the shoulder, I think every 30 seconds for about, I think it was between 6 and 8 rounds. I needed 12 rounds. And then I dropped down to a like EMOM.
Yeah.
And I made it, and it was rough. It was real rough. I was like demolished, and my ear was like raw. Like all the skin right here on my ear was just like, I had a scab right there, like about that big for,
nice.
You know, this isn't very vascular, and I have some cauliflower ear here, which makes it even less vascular. So it was just like, I had a scab right here for weeks.
Nice.
It was like, it took forever to heal.
Dude, I bet that one of my clients came to me wanting to do a bodyweight sandbag to shoulder for his birthday workout.
Was it Colby?
No, it was, do you know Arlo?
Yeah.
I bet you influenced that.
I think it might have been.
He had a bad time.
Yeah. Colby, I think Colby might have done it because he heard that I did it, and I don't quite recall. He might have been the person that influenced me to decide on body weight, because I think I might have originally been thinking as fast as possible with 200, and I think I told Colby 200, and then he took it as, I'm 200 body weight, and then he said body weight, and then I was like, oh
yeah, that's a better idea.
Yeah, body weight, let's do it. But last one.
Yeah.
30-year-old. I was like, this is a big one. I want to run 30 miles. And
I think I vaguely remember that.
Yeah. And so for my 30th birthday, I want to say it was 1 or 2 days. It was like within 2 days of my actual 30th birthday, I ran a 50K, which is 31.2. And it was the Bridal Veil Trails one just south of Kirkland. And it was brutal because they start that in the winter. I was born in the winter in January. And, it gets real dark, and it's an outside 50K, and those things can take a couple hours, especially if you're like me,
A couple hours.
Yeah, and they started it at like 2 or 3, so I was running into the night, and I only got about 10 miles in before it got dark, and it was a lot of running in the dark.
How long did it take you?
I think it took me just under 7 hours or something like that, and I do recall it was moderate hills. I'm really grateful it wasn't pavement because all the pavement running, I trained for it. All the street running that I did just wrecked me. It's just bad shin splints, like my knees, my ankles, my feet, just everything hurt. I had to find one that was a trail because I cannot run that far on street. So I was training on trails, and before I went there, I could run 15 and I could run 15 in 2:45 and be like, that's not a big deal, so I felt pretty good about it.
Nasty.
Yeah.
If you had to pick which one was the hardest of those that you just listed?
I think I'm going to name a couple things. Those ones come to mind because the first one was the maximum brutal at that time in my life. So that was like, whoa, that was way harder than I really ever thought possible. And then I, went on to beat that many times over. And at least in my perception, the 30 mile was the hardest thing I've ever done to my body physically, because it took me weeks to recover, and I had blisters under my toenails.
I bet.
It was like I was a wreck. So it was really hard in that way. But I do think, funny enough, I think that the sandbag to shoulder was just exceptionally brutal. It was really, really tough. It was probably the hardest one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of want to try it.
Yeah, we did. Oh man. Oh, there's a video series of me, Tyler Grant, I think Kristen, at the time Vitlasil, now Wisman, doing, I think it was my 23rd birthday. This one was simple. Me and Tyler used to get really into this. Me and Tyler Scott. He was one of my old training partners, and I feel like I owe a lot to him, because he and I would always push each other so hard. We would get on the 700-pound tire, and we would flip it back and forth until one of us quit. And we'd be there for 15 minutes. We would just go, and we'd race with the yoke, and we'd shave a quarter second off here and there. And we just became exceptional at things because we were so competitive, and he really pushed me. We pushed each other. It was just a beautiful relationship. And, something that, but anyway, he and I came up with this workout, and I just want to mention it because it was not, there's videos of them, so maybe we'll just put a bunch of links or something. But it was, if I recall correctly, all it was it was either sled drag 70 feet into tire flip 70 feet, or it was tire flip into sled drag. But then you had to take farmers down and around the tire and back. And I think it was tire into sled. Anyone who's ever done a sled drag into anything with your legs,
it's a bad time.
Knows how terrible that was. That was by design. We intentionally did it, and we knew that it'd be gruesome. And actually, that might be the most gruesome one. That might be worse than the sandbag.
So your legs don't work after something like that.
Yeah, no, they don't work, and you're trying to balance and control and exert. And I also did it in 3 minutes and 15 seconds, and all these videos are available. I know that these ones are available because I remember recording them and being really proud that what went down. But I did it in 3:15 or 3:14 or something like that, and I was so confident that I was like, if anybody beats that, I'm gonna do it again.
No.
Oh yeah. And that was just the angel choir singing to Tyler. He was like, I'm gonna fuck you up, my bro. He went and
challenge
hit it.
accepted.
Yeah, he went and hit it in 2:45.
Oh, he
smoked me.
He kicked your butt.
Smoked me. And I was like, okay. I'm doing it again. I got it in 2:43.
Did he do it again?
No. He was like,
called out.
I'm good. But Grant went and did it. It was rough. His run was rough, and Kristen went. We'll look him up, but
That'd be fun to look back.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Memory lane.
Yeah.
Cool. That's all I got. That was fun.
Yeah,
I knew that was going to be a fun one.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. Which one was your favorite? You're gonna do it again?
Not that one. What was this one? I want to give you a really good answer. That was the eyeball pop one.
Yeah, that was the
eyeball
eyeball
all
pop.
These. I actually think this one. This one, I've never tried this one before. And
it's smooth. I like that one.
Yeah, I thought that this one was pretty good.
Cool.
So well done, Zone.
Cool.
Yeah.
So,
I was impressed by this one.
Nice for us. Cool. So a new thing from Zone. They reached out to me yesterday. They want to start providing all of our guests with a bottle of their favorite salt. So we'll make sure that you get a bottle of that sent out after this. But that was a lot of fun. Thanks for being here.
Yeah,
where can people find you if they wanted to check out your YouTube, Instagram, anything like that?
Everything is just Zack McCarley. It's if you If you want to reach me by email, it's ZachMcCarley@gmail.com. If you want to reach me on Instagram, it's
Zach with a K. With a K.
Yeah, ZACKMCCARLEY.
Cool.
Yeah, just everything Zack McCarley.
Cool. I'll link all of his stuff.
YouTube.
Yeah, I'll link all of his stuff below so you know where to find him. Of course, thanks to Zone. Check them out. If you buy anything, use my code Murray10. It'll save you some money. It'll help support me as an athlete. And I'll see you next time for some more burning questions. Let me know in the comments who you want to see on the podcast and make sure you're subscribed. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.